all-consuming life. We're never big fans of Wendy Dang. They were skeptical of her.
And James and Lachlan saw Wendy as being tough on their dad. But Wendy wanted him to keep up with her. Wendy has him under a sort of regimen. He is on a strict diet of green and is not allowed to have dessert.
He undergoes this makeover. He dyes his hair red. He starts wearing a leather jacket. Rupert goes from the Upper East Side, established stodginess, to downtown hip. It's like the fountain of youth for Rupert.
And unlike Anna, who didn't want anything to do with the business, Wendy wanted to know what was going on in the company and was very interested in it.
Wendy went everywhere with him, and she's becoming also an advisor to the company.
She was very ambitious, and she had a lot of hopes for her two daughters. She says that she wants her own children to have the same standing as Rupert's other children.
Where does that stand today, succession?
Well, the two little girls are too young to consider this at the moment.
Do you consider them, you have said they're all my children.
They'll get treated equally financially.
He goes on Charlie Rose, and that is how his own children learn that he is slicing up the trust and giving his two youngest children an equal stake in the inheritance.
Each of the four elder children got paid $150 million for agreeing to include Grace and Chloe on the Murdoch Family Trust. So Rupert's 6 kids have an equal financial stake, but only their 4 eldest kids have a vote.
You ran into some buzzsaw within the family because of that decision.
Resolved everything very happily.
In fact, it sets off a bomb with the other kids. But he doesn't apologize for this and runs roughshod over their feelings and their desires.
We've seen this his entire life. When Rupert wants something, he will stop at nothing to get it.
Often, the Murdoch family, they would come together for Christmas or Thanksgiving on Rupert's super yacht called Morning Glory. James had been married to his wife, Catherine, for a while. And Catherine remembers these legendary games of family Monopoly that the Murdochs would play. Once, she caught Rupert cheating and called him out on it, and he just kind of smirked and shrugged. Apparently, this was a common feature of their family Monopoly games.
And that sort of tells you everything you need to know about him.
So after the changes to the trust, the family is divided. There's a lot of tension.
And especially with Rupert's favourite successor, Lachlan. I think there are a lot of things going on in Lachlan's head at that point. And he was still feuding with Roger Ailes. Ailes wants to get Fox Television to back a new series called Crime Line, hosted by Geraldo Rivera. Lachlan says it's too expensive, and he blocks it.
Roger goes directly to Rupert. Rupert reassures him and says, "Don't worry about the boy."
Don't worry about the boy. Do the show.
It was a classic Murdoch moment. Business over family.
Lachlan was in the air on his way back to America from Australia and found out about it when he landed. He felt betrayed. Rupert had backed Roger over him. Again.
Lachlan had tried to be the good son and the loyal deputy, but every time he tried to make a decision that one of the other executives didn't like, they would just go over his head to Rupert, and Rupert would often overrule Lachlan. So I think for Lachlan, the proximity to his dad ended up being bad for his place in the succession race.
There was some surprise news out of Rupert Murdoch's News Corp overnight, with his eldest son Lachlan quitting his job as an executive.
Lachlan Murdoch will remain on the News Corporation board, but plans to return home to Australia and pursue an independent career.
So now Liz and Prudence were out of the running to be heir apparent, And after Lachlan resigns in a huff, moves back to Australia, James is the only viable successor left.
James Murdoch has been given a much larger role overseeing all of News Corp's European and Asian operations.
30-year-old James Murdoch was appointed the new CEO of Sky 2 weeks ago.
Everyone wants to see the value of the company grow, and that's what we're going to work to do.
James' promotion was pretty controversial. There were howls of nepotism and outrage that Rupert's relatively young son was going to be entrusted with this crown jewel of British broadcasting. On top of the fact that this was the job that Liz had been after.
I'll tell you that James I met with in London, he was so arrogant, master of the universe kind of vibe. At this point, even though he hasn't gone to business school, he starts talking like he went to business school.
The abolition of media boundaries is a trumpet call to expansion, to do more.
James starts to affect a public persona that a lot of people around him suspected was modeled after Rupert.
He encourages all of his employees to call themselves pirates. So in his London office, he has a life-sized statue of Darth Vader and talks about them running the Death Star.
He's a good ambassador for his father, and he's also making the case that I can be the brash disruptor. I can be the bold new force, just as you once were.
The irony is that the more he seemed to act like Rupert, the more Rupert felt alienated by James.
But also we look forward to the government's
James begins to cultivate his own inner circle. He starts dining with prime ministers and cozying up to the liberal, respectable establishment. He wanted to modernize and run this company by what he considered to be the best practices and standards. So he was going to fire the more toxic executives and employees and emphasize human resources and start to listen to the lawyers more. All of this really rubbed Rupert the wrong way. He was really suspicious of James trying to cozy up to the establishment. It kind of makes Rupert regret that he doesn't have Lachlan around.
After being forced out by Roger Ailes, Lachlan is in Australia with his tail between his legs.
He was still on the News Corporation board.
The profit motive is not only fundamental to
But
our
he was
ability
doing his own thing, looking to make big investments for the company.
He was kind of humiliated, but he still wants to emulate his father.
The question is, how good a businessman is Lachlan? One of the things that's powering newspapers at the time is classified ads, but it's quite clear that the newspapers are fading and the internet's going to take all the advertising revenue and real estate ads in particular. So Lachlan says we need to get a share of that. And so when realestate.com comes along, he buys it.
This is clearly a great deal. And it's a great deal for everyone involved. It's win-win-win.
The decision to invest in realestate.com.au makes the family billions of dollars, and it becomes the most valuable property in the News Corp business in Australia. I think they only paid $10 million. It's now worth more than $1 billion.
By taking himself out of the running and moving back to Australia to set up his own shop and start building his own little media empire, Lachlan becomes more desirable to his father as a successor. I think that his dad kind of wants what he can't have.
Mr. Murdoch, the market's wondering about your succession. You said this week that virtually you'll die in the saddle, but you obviously have to think of it.
It would be very nice. It's every father's natural desire to see his children follow him if they're up to it. And we'll have to see how they work it out. I hope not fight it out, but I hope to be around for a few more years.
Rupert is not a person who likes to talk about his death.
But now he's 94 years old, and he's clearly preparing for one day when he eventually passes.
At this point, Liz James and Prue share concerns about the direction of the company.
Good morning, Mr. Murdoch.
Rupert sees Fox as his legacy, and he's convinced that Lachlan is the only one that will carry on what he built. At the same time, Lachlan's looking over his shoulder, worried that after his father dies, there could be a coup and he could be pushed aside. So Rupert and Lachlan start looking into the Murdoch family trust. If Rupert doesn't get the trust built around Lachlan, it's over. They want to figure out, is there a way to poke a hole in this trust? And what they find is there actually is a way, as long as it was solely for the benefit of all of the heirs. The simplest way to understand it is the trust had 8 votes, 4 controlled by Rupert, 1 controlled by each child. So Rupert could never be outvoted, but no child could be in control when Rupert died. So Rupert and Lachlan want to create 2 new entities that will control the trust. And those entities will be able to override the one that exists currently. They're keeping it secret from all the other children. And they're going to do it under a crazy code name, Project Family Harmony.
You have named your plan to take the voting rights of 3 children away from them, Project Family Harmony.
I mean, just mind-blowing.
There was a period of a few weeks, and then James got an invitation to join a Zoom call for a special meeting on the family trust. He did not know what this meeting would be about. He had no reason to believe there was any need to meet about the family trust. James was completely blindsided by this. Then his managing director received an agenda. He called James and said, "You need to look at this. Your dad is making a move for the entire empire." About a week after that, the Murdoch family get on the Zoom.
There's a lot of tension in the room.
You have James and his 2 sisters, Prudence and Liz, and his older brother, Lachlan. And you have Rupert surrounded by 100 lawyers. He starts just kind of robotically reading from this script.
He tells them, "I'm going to change the family trust.
You'll still have your shares, but you'll have no voting power. You'll have no ability to make decisions. It's just going to be Lachlan who has control."
So the meeting does not go particularly well.
They're shouting, there's yelling.
It became very emotional.
James can't believe his father is saying this.
That he was willing to do something so provocative and so harmful. This is what had become of his family.
Rupert says, you would come in, you would change this company, you would take it to the left. That's the golden goose you're playing with. You need to go along with this. It's good for all of you in spite of yourselves. What's notable is that Lachlan is silent, when of course he had helped architect the whole thing. Liz can't contain herself. She says, how are you going to get consensus with a gun to our heads?
It was brutal.
It's total war.
How the other side lives. This is episode 3. Season 1? How many seasons are there?
Jim Rutenberg and I first started writing about the Murdochs more than 20 years ago.
So, to ease my stress that I've been going through over the last couple of days, I've just gotten myself into my creative projects, okay? That's why I haven't really been doing a lot of videos, because every time I go on to do a video, it ends up being, you see what it end up being. And it's stressful to me, so now I'm just recouping. So I've been making some designs. This is gonna be like in the middle of a shirt eventually. Okay. I did this. Not sure what it is, but I'll put it on some kind of garment or something. I can put some dangly bits on there. This, oh, I'm making a body chain. That's what I'm doing with this black and white. This part, I feel is meant to go around. Or something like that. I ran out of red, so I'm just gonna keep whatever I have and make up the rest as I go along. This is a shirt, the beginning of a shirt that I'm gonna do for Malika. So it's kind of like a halter neck, or maybe we could just do it like this. This is part of a garment that I'm gonna make. This one is for the boob. That goes with that. And then I'm gonna put some fabrics. I'm gonna use some actual cloth. I'm not gonna do it completely knitted. What else? This one is a bracelet. A bracelet here. But it's too big. I don't like these so big. But yeah, I did that too. And yeah. It's mostly like chokers and stuff like that. Mostly jewelry. This one is for a body chain. I made some earrings as well. I'm in the process of making this one for Malika. I put some glue on it, gotta let it dry, and then I'm going to put it on the hooks. This is the earring hook. I'm going to show you some of the earrings that I made yesterday, and then I'll get back to listening to the Murdoch Empire. What's this? Oh, this is my bag of scraps. I made this yesterday. These ones, y'all saw me wear these ones a couple of days ago. Those were the first ones that I made. And then Malika designed these and I made them into earrings. Survivor. C'est moi. And I'm in the process of making these ones. So I've basically done the base. It's just for me to put some hooks on there. Okay. And then I did this one. Very simple design. For those girls when I feel like, for those days when I feel like a girl. And I did this one. Just here. Let's see. I haven't tried them on. I just made them. Yeah. So yeah. That's how I've been spending my time over the last couple of days. It relaxes me. And it's the gift that keeps on giving because I get to enjoy the beauty of them continually. So it was a great way to unwind and just forget about everything. I'll forget about the war. Yeah. So let's go back to listening about the Murdoch Empire. This is the newspaper giant. Let's see how they basically they're talking about how they raise children and when it comes to their futures and stuff like that. So they say that Murdoch basically made access or ownership of the empire like a kind of sport for the children. So they were raised kind of competing with each other. It's been an interesting listen. I'm not gonna believe everything that I hear, but yeah, it's an interesting story. It's a great way to pass my time. He divorced his wife. His wife also was the head of an empire. She bore him 3 children, and they're talking about some new girl, Wendy, some Chinese girl that he divorced his wife for. He divorced his wife and married this Chinese girl. And to me, it's like, why would you divorce her? If you listen to it, those of you who have listened to it, it's like, what was wrong with this woman that you would divorce? But these people are just mad. No relationship is perfect, fair enough. But it's like, I knew that from the time he divorced that woman, it would be the fall of his empire. That's the point where his empire start going down. Because his wife raised the children to adulthood. They were all doing fine. They all went off and started their own businesses and stuff like that. But there was a sense of force. There was a sense of force. So they allegedly, James, the son, was like the wayward son. He didn't really express an interest in the business. And somehow he got roped back into the business. And then the son, what was his name? The son name start with a L. I can't remember. It's a very interesting name. But the other son, he showed dedication and devotion from since he was a little boy, according to their story. And somehow the father made it so that the other son, James, who was never really that dedicated, just took over and seemed to be outshining and outdoing the son that's been devoted for a long time. And then now he's trying to, now the father, Murdoch, is trying to get rid of all of the other children's power to the empire and just Lachlan, I think that's his name, and put it in the hand of the son that was always dedicated from the beginning. So it's like, what the hell happened there? First, you're for him, then you treat him like it was a mistake for you to have such high hopes in him, and you put the other allegedly wayward son ahead, and now you want to take away power from all the other children and put it all back into the hands of the dedicated son alone. But you see, politics usually plays a part in these high society people's lives. I don't really know too much about them, but I know that sometimes they're met with decisions and they think they're making the right decision, but are they? Because it's like, how does Lachlan feel about, but maybe Lachlan know what the father was doing when he removed Lachlan and put James in charge. Who knows? I'm just listening to the story, seeing what I could learn from the experience. But the first daughter that wasn't for his wife, she didn't want anything to do with the empire. I don't remember what her name is. Then the other daughter, the daughter of the wife now, Elizabeth, she was like, imagine she's doing so well in the company according to the report, and the father still wanna be all sexist towards her and cussing her out because she got children and she want more children and whatnot, treating her like she can't do what the fuck she was doing, even though she had children already. It's like, I have children, I'm running the companies and they're all successful. Like, what's your beef? He still want to talk down to her because she's a girl. He doesn't want her to inherit the Murdoch empire. Crazy. To all the Murdoch children, I empathize with you, okay? Because this is a prime example. Just know that your case is not unique. This is how people with power, they have their own agendas, okay? And I don't want to say that you're only pawns in that game, but a lot of the times parents, they make these successful business and they expect their children to come and take over. And it's like, how do you know that that's what the children want to do in the first place? And over the years, they tend to manipulate the children's mind with no consideration of the children's desires. You know what I'm saying? It's like, how do you know that these 4 children that you have even want to be part of the media business? Maybe they have no interest in being a part of the media business. So James, the alleged wayward son, he at one point he separated himself from the Murdoch empire and decided he's gonna start his own recording company, get into hip hop and all these things. And I think it was fine. They said that he worked with people like Eminem and they showed Mos Def. Like he said that they were saying that some of the stars were actually discovered through this media company called Rock. I don't know if it's called Rock With Us or whatever. A lot of information. So anyway, he did that, and the father Murdoch, they say, wanted him back in the newspaper business. So the father Murdoch bought the recording company and then assigned James to a branch in China. And at the time, China was going through some vibes where they were basically disregarding the human rights of Chinese people. And instead of James standing up for what is right, he basically was trying to justify it, saying that maybe democracy doesn't always work. And basically saying that this is how they live. This is their this is shit. That's their thing. It's like, to him, it's like, it's none of my business. I'm not here for that. So he basically turned a blind eye to the disregard of the human rights of the Chinese people. And it's a crazy story. So far, it's a recommended watch for those of you interested in such topics. But yeah, this is the news. They say that this is the person who founded Fox News, Rupert Murdoch. He founded Fox News and he owned the the New York Post. So it's let's call him a big head, okay? He got power. So I want to get back to what happened now. I want to be nosy. I want to learn something.
And, I would say with some humility that
The New York Times.
Jim Rutenberg and I first started writing about the Murdochs more than 20 years ago. And, I would say with some humility that I think we have gotten to know the family pretty well.
clue. We get contacted by this mystery person saying, you're going to find this pretty interesting, given what you do and who you cover. So we agreed to meet. All I can say is the way that we had to get that first document was pretty involved. Nothing was going to be given to us electronically because it's all so sensitive. So that meant meeting in secret locations, passing envelopes.
Until finally we got our hands on these secret documents. We couldn't believe it. I mean, it was jaw-dropping. This was thousands of pages. Emails, text messages.
Every page was unbelievable.
You're being lobbied by James, and you're going to bend to his will. To this, Liz responds, do you think I'm a fucking moron?
The family was airing decades of dirty laundry in a Nevada court.
That's when it first dawned on us that, oh my God, the Murdoch family is in a massive lawsuit against each other.
Breaking news. According to the New York Times, 93-year-old Rupert Murdoch allegedly surprised 3 of his children by filing to change an irrevocable trust.
It reads like an episode of Succession.
Secret proceedings of a legal battle.
At issue, who controls his right-leaning media empire? Joining me now is one of the reporters who broke this story. All right, Jim, why are the 3 siblings going up against Lachlan and Rupert?
I just would say it's really why is Rupert going against the 3 siblings.
After our story ran, everyone knew the family was suing each other over Rupert's desire to lock in Lachlan's control over the company.
Morning. Anybody have any comments, Rudy?
But then there was no more information available. The case was sealed.
Do you have any comment?
No one was really allowed to talk about it. And then we learned that all of the Murdoch family members were going to actually testify against each other.
The Murdochs were going to war in a pitched court fight over the future of the entire empire.
In early 2024, before the New York Times piece came out, I approached James really just on a hunch that he would have an interesting story to tell. He couldn't quite believe that his father was willing to divide the family, maybe permanently. So when James was deposed as part of the preparation for the trial, he was really ready to go to battle. James had spent 20 years as a senior executive. He had been in depositions where you have to be really aggressive. And so he decided that he was going to approach the whole thing in a spirit of corporate combat. But the deposition was much more difficult for James emotionally than I think he was prepared for. When he walked into the boardroom, James saw that it wasn't just his father's lawyer and his lawyer, but sitting in this office was his father himself. James didn't know that Rupert would be there. This is the first time he had seen Rupert in years. They were fully estranged. His dad just sat down across from him. They didn't talk to each other. And for the next several hours, Rupert's lawyer just grilled James with incredibly, witheringly personal questions. Questions like, have you ever accomplished anything on your own? Or why don't you ever take responsibility for the things that go wrong in your life? Or why were you too busy to call your dad on his 90th birthday? James told me that he tried to concentrate on the lawyer's questions, but he just kept looking over at his dad, who was staring inscrutably at his son. And every once in a while, Rupert would pick up his phone and tap something out. And eventually, James realized that these super aggressive, mean-spirited personal questions were actually coming from his father. I remember talking to James weeks later, and he was still sort of reeling from the experience. He couldn't quite believe what had happened. He was constantly
You see that? So this rich man, he decided to be the provider for his children. And now he's asking him, why have you never accomplished anything on your own? He probably got him out of a lot of hard jams. And he's asking in the meeting, why don't you ever take accountability for what you've done? Let this be a lesson to all you rich children, okay? It could very well be a setup, okay? So those of you who like to do all type of stupid shit and then know that, oh, my daddy's gonna take care of it, or my mom is gonna take care of it. You like to say, do you know who my mother is? Do you know who my father is? That shit ain't free. Look at how he's using that against his son. The man asks the son, have you ever accomplished anything on your own? Now, had they gone off when they were younger to try to accomplish things on their own, would he have allowed them to? You know, they would say what? A child like that is a traitor because they're trying to go off and make a life of their own where they don't have to ask people for things. It's like you can't win. So if you know you can't win, then the best thing to do is just follow your vibe. Don't watch what they're gonna say. Don't watch what they're gonna think. Don't watch them cutting you out of the will or nothing like that. Be true to who you are. That's what I say. No matter what happened, at least you can say you lived as you believed. You know, because you're gonna make decisions that you feel are best for you. So it's either that or they're going to use their money to control you. The man actually asks his son, like, have you ever accomplished anything on your own? Like, haven't you been the one that's providing them with all this money that they don't even have to work for? They got daddy to give them the capital to start up a business. So, and their mother. You don't allow your children to try and do anything on their own. So shit, if I was James, that would be my case. I haven't had to do anything on my own because you've always provided for me. What's your point? What's your argument, Dad? Oh, let me go back a little bit. I want to hear it again.
And eventually, James realized that James told me that he tried to concentrate on the lawyer's questions, but he just kept looking over at his dad, who was staring at
wait.
at
It's
his
before
son,
this.
and
Listen to the question.
incredibly, witheringly personal questions. Questions like, have you ever accomplished anything on your own?
Question 1. Have you ever accomplished anything on your own? Let's see.
Or
question
why don't
2.
you ever take responsibility for the things that go wrong in your life?
Question 2. Why don't you ever take responsibility for the things that go wrong in your life? Okay, let's see. Next question. This is a lesson for all the rich kids out there, you know. Okay.
Or why were you too busy to call your dad on his 90th birthday?
And why were you too busy to call your dad on his 90th birthday? Now that's rude. Especially someone who's been providing for you and helping to keep you out of trouble and all these things. That's rude. That's ungrateful.
James told me that he tried to concentrate on the lawyer's questions, but he just kept looking over at his dad, who was staring inscrutably at his son. And every once in a while, Rupert would pick up his phone and tap something out. And eventually, James realized that these super aggressive, mean-spirited personal questions were actually coming from his father. I remember talking to James weeks later, and he was still sort of reeling from the experience. He couldn't quite believe what had happened. He was constantly analyzing it and trying to make sense about why his dad did what he did. The question that kept coming back to him was, how did we let it come to this?
If you look at the succession in 2011, James is in the box seat.
Monocle has been the strong challenger as they turn for home. Monocle now strikes the...
Elizabeth walked away from the company, and Lachlan's back in Australia.
Monocle has had this patchy season with the champion hurdle.
James is running News Corp in Britain, and their tabloids were making an absolute fortune.
He sits atop what's now called News UK, their publishing empire in Great Britain. The 4 newspapers that they own, most importantly, the News of the World.
So the Murdoch family so far had publishing empires in America, UK, seem like China, and Australia. Big money, big business, big responsibilities.
They have a villainous reputation in Britain for down-market tabloids and conservative politics.
One of Rupert's editors once gave a staff talk. He said, imagine the old man down the end of the bar. Doesn't like immigrants. He doesn't like poofs. He thinks that there's too much smut on TV, but he wants to see tits in the newspaper. That's who we're writing for.
You're feasting on missteps and embarrassments of celebrities.
Since it is a voice,
if you were a royal, if you were a politician, if you were some fancy actor, a sports star or a singer, you were fair game.
The News of the World's the jewel in the crown of Rupert Murdoch's empire.
Enormously profitable.
Britain's biggest selling newspaper with an unrivaled reputation for journalistic scoops.
I went to work for the News of the World because I liked its reputation. It was like the Death Star, the dark heart of the evil empire. And that emanated from the characters who ran it.
Piers Morgan, who you might have heard of, was my first boss. One day I turned up with a load of stolen photographs. Pictures of Naomi Campbell, Reba Herzegovina, Carla Bruni, all of them topless. I gave him to the picture editor and he said, well, can I use these? The stolen pictures. And Piers went, yeah, boys, to stick it in. Good work. And on the basis of that, I got my staff job at the news for stealing, basically.
One thing which is
Just
interesting
another
about
day.
Murdoch and his corporate culture is a sense that anything can be achieved by a force of will. And this is a really important characteristic of the people who work for him.
He needed people that would do whatever it took to continue his way of doing business. And at the News of the World, that was Rebecca Brooks.
Rebecca Brooks was the features editor. He used to work as a secretary in the magazine. And Murdoch made her editor of the biggest newspaper in the world.
Rebecca Brooks was sort of the daughter that Rupert never had because she was unfailingly loyal to him.
Elizabeth Murdoch hated her, but Murdoch loved her.
Rebecca Brooks is an excellent example of a senior Rupert Murdoch executive. Moves at 800 miles an hour, knows all about newspapers, makes quick decisions, is resourceful.
Quite hot, nice ass. She walked through the
Did you
office.
just say
with
quiet
just
whore?
throwing them behind her.
Knows all about newspapers, makes quick decisions, is resourceful.
Quite hot, nice ass.
Oh, quite hot.
She walked through the office with bits of paper, just throwing them behind her. This is shit. And her secretary's scurrying behind her, picking up the bits of paper.
There's no moaning or excuses. It was get the story at any cost.
Throughout the 2000s, the news of the world was going gangbusters. They were getting great scoops about celebrities, politicians, football stars, and every entity in the UK was trying to get to the bottom of it. How are they doing that?
The Murdoch organisation at the News of the World was an organised crime group by any definition. Scores of people were involved. Journalists and private detectives trading unlawful information. They were spending millions of pounds a year on gathering it. And it went on all over the world. It was called the Dark Arts.
So that's what happens in news.
Hiring private investigators, sitting in surveillance vans,
getting the phone bills, medical records, bank records, flight details. And what that means is you can get to the story first. It gave Murdoch the competitive advantage against other newspapers on exclusive stories. I had a contact who could give me stories on Prince Charles, who was having an affair with Camilla Parker Bowles. She's the Queen now. So I knew her inside movements.
I spent the last month of Diana's life just chasing her around the world. I can see why Harry hates us. Sorry, Harry.
Wherever you went, bang, out came a pen. And you thought, how do they know where I am?
I got sent to LA to follow Hugh Grant crawling for black hookers. So what did Murdoch want us to
Say what?
I got sent to LA to follow Hugh Grant crawling for black hookers. So what did Murdoch want us to do? Find the girl, give her $250,000 to tell us all about what Hugh Grant asked you to do in his car. All the dirty details.
I think I thought, well, this is all part of my punishment. But life at that time was extremely difficult because their power grew and grew and grew.
I mean, you know, you could do anything as long as you didn't get caught. But it's important that a wall is maintained. So the Murdochs can't see how the sausage is made, even though they know how it's done. So there's plausible deniability on every level. That's really important in a Murdoch organisation.
I didn't know that's what they were
James
doing.
is in charge of all of Murdoch's papers in Britain at the time.
But he doesn't really care about newspapers that much.
He was very much interested in tech, and he was making investments all over the place. I think he was trying to say, you know, this is not my daddy's old media company.
B-Sky B, Britain's most lucrative satellite TV provider.
News Corp is trying to buy the 60% of B-Sky B it doesn't already own.
At that point, James is right on the cusp of getting this deal with B-Sky B, which would make a huge amount of money for them.
B-Sky B is an incredibly powerful satellite television operation, and it will give the Murdochs a launch pad to control the media environment around the world.
We're about to complete the merger of the 3 European Sky businesses, which, creates something really new, a real 21st century digital television company.
James sees that if he's able to bring B-Sky B into the fold, that will be his crowning achievement. But in order to be approved, you need to be, quote unquote, fit and proper, which means your newspapers are not doing things that are illegal or untoward.
This requires an enormous amount of review by the British government. And it's James's job to get it across. James has managed to befriend and ingratiate himself with Jeremy Hunt, a key cabinet figure, and Rebecca Brooks is a close friend and confidant of the new Prime Minister, David Cameron. So everything seems aligned perfectly to go James's way. When a headline erupts in early July of 2011.
Heinous and
and despicable. Shock and anger going much too far to get a story.
New allegations against the News of the World.
News of the World hacked into
Voicemails of the families of murder victims. The murdered schoolgirl, Millie Dowler.
Millie Dowler was a schoolgirl who was abducted and murdered. And before her body was found, the News of the World were hacking her phone.
The way to hack someone's phone is to make sure they're asleep or engaged. You just ring them up on one phone, they answer it, then you just dial again on the other one to get through to their messages.
Oh, is that what you do?
The investigator has given you the code. So
Listen.
And you just ring them up on one. The way to hack someone's phone is to make sure they're asleep or engaged. You just ring them up on one phone, they answer it, then you just dial again on the other one to get through to their messages.
Enter your security code.
And the private investigator has given you the code, so you put the code in and you listen to their messages.
When the voicemail became full, messages were deleted so that more could be left.
A private detective working for the News of the World deleted some of those messages, giving her family the false hope that she might still be alive.
I rang her phone
Yes.
and it clicked through onto her voicemail, so I heard her voice.
Yes.
And it was just like a jump. She's picked up her voicemails, Bob. She's alive.
They made the parents think the girl was alive. It just was, who would do that? That's when I started calling him Uncle Satan.
There had been stories about celebrities getting hacked, but there's not as much sympathy for the victims of those stories because these are wealthy people.
But when it was a schoolgirl, people realized this stuff could happen to anybody. This was fiendishly vile.
We were reviled by everybody. My wife fucking hated me for my job. You're a fucking lowlife. This is my wife, you know.
Cover-up started to take place, deletions of emails and destruction of evidence.
The private eye I used to use, he burnt all his records quickly.
This developed into a raging roiling scandal. It affected the law enforcement establishment, top officials at Scotland Yard,
I
who had
bet.
essentially looked the other way for years, and politicians who appeared compromised by their ties to the Murdochs.
What I've read in the papers is quite shocking.
Britain's Prime Minister vowing no stone will be left unturned. James Murdoch and other News Limited executives could face charges over a suspected cover-up, with reports millions of emails were deleted from an internal archive.
According to James, he immediately ordered the lawyers to turn over everything they had to the police, to start cooperating with an investigation. Over Rupert's objections,
Detectives made their first arrest and seized evidence.
Thousands of pages of notes were seized.
There are more alleged crimes, rampant computer hacking, stolen bank data, even break-ins.
this was not a one-off thing. Journalists at News of the World had been working with private investigators to hack voicemails for years. They'd hacked the voicemails of parents of a child who was murdered by a pedophile and troops who were killed in combat in Afghanistan and Iraq.
This was emotional stuff, and Rupert was very much painted as the villain here.
One thing we understand about Rupert with his executives is if you win, you can do whatever you want. Just keep winning. But hacking showed just how far his executives were willing to take that. This was across the line.
Here was pretty good evidence that they were leveraging these papers to push agendas and to blackmail people and to invade people's privacy. All the stuff that you kind of suspected but didn't know, it was all out there and laid bare.
I'm not making any comments.
Stock in Murdoch's parent company, News Corp, has dropped nearly 15%. Advertisers leaving in droves.
On Wednesday, the Prime Minister David Cameron joined opposition politicians in Parliament to call on Rupert Murdoch.
The Prime Minister has promised a public inquiry.
The people involved, however high or low they go, they must not only be brought to justice, they must also have no future role in running a media company in our country.
The three principal executives are being called to testify before Parliament.
I think they really are in a lot of trouble.
This could be the moment his newspaper power crumbles.
The question was, how high up was this scandal going to go? Would there be a Murdoch scalp?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. And first of all, I would like to say as well just how sorry I am and how sorry we are to particularly the victims of illegal voicemail interceptions and to their families.
When you get to that, I would just like to say one sentence. This is the most humble day of my life.
So, in order to claw out from under this $1 million scandal, he gives an apology. Rupert clearly knows that that's the posture that he has to strike.
At what point did you find out that criminality was endemic at News of the World?
Endemic is a very wide-ranging word. I was absolutely.
Damn. Oh. Yeah, let's find out what you call him. Endemic.
Endemic is a very hard.
Yeah. Let's see what endemic means, shall we? They ask him when he found out about these endemic practices or something like that. What the hell does that mean? He claims that it's too much of a harsh word. Endemic. E-N-D. Wow, we got end. There we got, endemic. Present within a localized area or peculiar to a particular group of people. Let's hear the question again.
At what point did you find out that criminality was endemic at News of the World?
At what point did you find the criminality was endemic at News of the World? Endemic. Present within a localized area. At what point did you find out?
He gives an apology. Rupert clearly knows that that's the posture that he has to strike.
At what point did you find out that criminality was endemic at News of the World?
You see, this is why these people don't like me, because I mean, what's the point in me watching it if I don't understand what the fuck they're saying? Dude, that's at what point did you know this did you find out that this criminality was endemic at News of the World? It's like local within a endemic, meaning like it's within a certain space. And then he says endemic is kind of a strong word. But apparently he does that everywhere. That it's a practice everywhere. That once they don't get caught, they said, it's cool for you to hack into people's medical files and hack into people's emails and hacking, like follow them around and take pictures and paparazzi. But on another level, because hacking into emails and shit, that's a bit deep now. Hacking into people's private medical records, it's like you have to know some people with the power and the know-how to hack into the NHS records, because that's governmental files now. So they must have been working with some people that's like high up. Okay. Anyway, let's see.
Endemic is a very wide-ranging word.
Wide-ranging. He said it is hard and wide-ranging. But you do it everywhere. You see, I was absolutely shocked and appalled and ashamed. Were you, Murdoch?
Shocked, appalled, and ashamed when I heard about the Millie Downer case only 2 weeks ago.
He mumbled.
I don't know anything about that.
He seemed like a confused older man.
I forget the date.
This was not the fearsome media mogul that people expected that they were going to see. And it was a very effective performance, whether it was real or not.
I don't remember meeting him. I might have shaken hand, walked to the office, but I don't have any memory. I just don't remember.
I literally turned to someone. I was like, he's pretending he's addled. Are you kidding me? This guy's a viper.
Rupert said he had no idea. James said he had no idea.
I have no knowledge, and there is no evidence that I'm aware of.
They stood back. Him, James, Rebecca.
That's all, folks.
That's just the journalist did it.
I think that
I'm aware of. That
they all stood back. Him, James, Rebecca all said, "Oh, we knew nothing about that. It's just the journalist did it."
And I think they behaved disgracefully and betrayed the company, me. Okay.
This is them talking about the people who work for them. So they allow these people to, they allow these workers to go about getting the information anyhow they like, as long as they don't get caught. And then when they get caught, they say, I have no knowledge. And then they're like, it must be the ethics of the newspaper staff that they chose to go about gathering the information in this criminalistic way. That has nothing to do with us. Shit.
Knew nothing about that. It's just the journalist did it.
The journalist did it.
And I think they behaved disgracefully and betrayed the company, me.
Okay. Well, it's been obvious to most of the...
Rebecca Brooks, by all accounts, would have been the natural scapegoat for all of this, right? She was running News of the World and then the newspaper division. But Rupert loved Rebecca Brooks and was more loyal to Rebecca Brooks than he was to James.
Can I ask, in 2008?
In fact, there's this moment where one of the members of Parliament asks Rupert about a specific incidence of phone hacking. And Rupert, rather than answer, says,
I think my son can perhaps answer that in more detail. He was a lot closer.
Rupert really threw James to the wolves on that one.
Have you been made aware prior to the Millie Downer story breaking that your reporters hacked into the phones of any other crime victims?
No, I had not been made aware of it.
Most of this hacking took place before James came into the job.
But then it comes out that James has in fact been on an email chain approving a settlement in order to keep the phone hacking situation quiet.
When you signed off the Taylor payment, did you see or were you made aware of the 4-level email?
No, I was not aware of that at the time.
James approved a £1 million settlement to an official with a football association that they had hacked into. James said the fact of the payment was on an email chain that he read over the weekend, that he hadn't really realized what he was signing off on.
Mr. Murdoch, you must be the first mafia boss in history who didn't know he was running a criminal enterprise.
Mr. Watson, please. I think that's inappropriate.
So at the hearing with James and Rupert is Wendy Dang Murdoch, who is there by his side.
So then there's this crazy moment where this guy rises to smash a cream pie into Murdoch's face, like he's on some sort of Benny Hill slapstick episode. And Wendy knocks it out of his hand, which is incredible television.
It's an absurd moment, but it's also really destabilizing.
And it's funny how you're showing us that clip, but you show us the clip from the back of Murdoch. Why couldn't you show us the head-on view so we could see the person coming from behind him wanting to slap him in the face with whatever this pastry was? I got my eyes on you people, you know.
Sympathy for Murdoch.
The instant Murdoch was hit with that pie, News Corp stock spiked. This is brilliant. He needs to be hit with more pies.
I think that the spectacle of the pie did distract a bit from the substance of the allegations, and it turned the whole thing into a farce when the issues that were being litigated were very serious.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, all members.
It didn't bring justice, and it didn't get to the truth of this organised crime group.
I must have watched that video 100 times.
This is basically telling us the story of how the news media lost its sense of sincerity. This is where actual investigative journalism and all that became nothing. It's like it's all about entertainment, really. That's what it is. It's like let's distract them. Basically, just PR. Sad.
Striking because Wendy has such protectionism instincts for him, and James is not, which is the interesting thing.
It's not about actually delivering news to letting people know what's happening in their environment. It's all about entertaining the public. It's all about getting emotional reactions or getting doing stories that will get the newspapers sold, and you know, the sincerity of journalism is just and disappear.
Your wife is a very good left hook.
I have to say, she was fast. I wrote her, I'm like, wow, you're fast. I'm not getting in your way, my friend.
I'm not a big proponent of the 4-decade marriage age gap. But if ever there was a situation where it would pay dividends, it would be an ambush like that.
It's very good for Wendy's brand because she's seen as Rupert's protector and a badass.
Jury, and who's the jury?
Wendy is just a much hipper person than Murdoch is. She's young, she's with it.
She would call Rupert an old man. She would say that he was stupid.
She belittles him in private and then over time socially in public as well.
That's what he left his wife for. A woman who calls him stupid and belittles him not only in private but eventually in public too. A big mogul like this, a proper big head like this, your wife talk to you like that. That's who you left your wife for.
She's very tough. And she is linked to a number of other prominent figures romantically.
There were rumors about a relationship with Tony Blair.
They basically turned the whole Murdoch news empire into, well, what once used to be something that was actually worthy of investing into. They've basically turned it into a circus. It's like they basically made the empire lose its actual respect, and they're like, it's like after they have lost their respect, they started creating this cloud of false respect. So they had to come with more gimmicks and more smoke and mirrors to kind of shield the truth of the situation to kind of fool the public and distract the public from what the real issues are. Because here he is making jokes talking about she's a tough woman. You a weak man too. You fucked up. You fucked up. You fucked up. You fucked up the whole empire. You, Murdoch. As far as this report is showing me, you fucked up. You shouldn't have allowed all that shit to be taking place. But you see, that's where this conversation about corruption in all business areas comes up in our readings. God say only businesses who are still who decide to conduct their operations in a sense, only businesses who choose to operate their businesses off of integrity are going to stand in the end. Because once you get enough of these gimmicks, it's like nobody take anything seriously anymore, but people still have serious needs. So when people buy products, they want those products to serve them in a way that makes their life easier or make them happier or whatever. It's after a while, people are going to get fed up with the dissatisfaction of basically inadequate service, inadequate goods, and then none of those smoke and mirrors, none of those gimmicks are going to work anymore. And that's how these empires will fall. People just go stop investing in them. And then when people stop investing in them, then the investors will stop investing in them. Because people still have real needs. So if you're not catering to the needs of the public, the consumer, then how is your business going to thrive? How many people are going to keep investing in newspapers that they know are just talking a whole bunch of shit that nobody what is that doing for my life? That's what the people are going to start asking. How is that helping me? People want, if you're going to sell people news, at the very least, it needs to be honest news, not some fabricated story. Because it's like, what's the point? If I want to read a story, I go and borrow a book or buy a book or something. Why am I reading a newspaper which is intended to keep us up to date with what is happening in our surroundings locally and internationally, when I'm not getting any accurate information? It doesn't make any sense. You see? So this is actually the destruction of the Murdoch empire that we're watching playing out right here.
To try to figure out if that was true or not.
Yeah, she's very tough.
And she is linked to a number of other prominent figures romantically.
Romantically. So she cheats on you publicly.
Relationship with Tony Blair.
Rupert grills his staff to try to figure out if that was true or not.
The family went crazy. They were like all hands on deck. Get rid of her.
James and Lachlan got together and created a dossier on Wendy to present to their father. And this included a note that Wendy had written to herself in her diary and then thrown away. A housekeeper who was cleaning up in Rupert and Wendy's triplex found that piece of paper. And in that note, she was describing her feelings for Tony Blair.
There were exchanges about the curve of his bottom.
How hot he looked when he was talking on stage.
His piercing blue eyes.
And how attracted to him she was. And when James and Lachlan presented that to their father, that was the last straw. He was convinced to divorce Wendy.
Media mogul and billionaire Rupert Murdoch is heading for divorce court again, ending a 14-year marriage to his third wife.
Vanity Fair's story
about the alleged relationship between Wendy Ding and Tony Blair is published had access to the private note written by Wendy Ding.
This was deeply humiliating for Rupert.
But it was perfect tabloid fodder. And because Rupert has always made his money on sex and scandal, a lot of people felt that he had finally gotten his just desserts.
A complete bombshell. After 168 years in print, this Sunday's edition of the News of the World will be the last.
Britain's biggest selling newspaper was dramatically killed off.
Staff gasped in shock. Others reduced to tears.
Closing the News of the World to Rupert Murdoch is like Paul McCartney deleting the White Album. That would have been heartbreaking for him. It not only made this.
Okay, so now the whole operation shut down. So what happened to all those people who were employed in this business? What happens to them? Do they get any compensation because of the mismanagement of the people at the head of the company? All the millions and billions that they hope to leave for their children when they die. Shouldn't they take some of that and compensate these people for their gross mismanagement of the company, causing them to lose their job? All the little people basically have lost. If the company shut down, all the little people lose their job. That means it affects their housing, it affects their ability to care for their children and themselves. It affects any health responsibilities that they have, financial health obligations that they may have, all the responsibilities that they have. It affects their lives. How do these people on the lower end of the company get compensated for the mismanagement of all of the heads of these companies? Do they get compensated for these people at the top of the company not taking their roles as managers, CEOs seriously?
Closing the News of the World to Rupert Murdoch is like Paul McCartney deleting the White Album. That would have been heartbreaking for him. It not only made his fortune, it was also a massive part of British popular culture.
They were trying to protect their empire. And then they did what it took to fix it. They're good at sacrificing things they need to survive.
News International Chairman James Murdoch said the paper's proud history had been tarnished by the behaviour he called inhuman.
We all got sacked, 200 journalists got laid off. Then he decided to turn us over to the cops. I just thought, you fucker.
Wow.
Actions taken by certain individuals in what had been a good newsroom have breached the trust that the News of the World has with its readers.
The main private eye, Glenn Mulcair, got arrested, sent to jail, as well as...
That's why when you see bad things happen to these people, you don't need to question why. So these people at the top knew that the reporters were getting these information about different people that they're going to write about in a criminalistic way, right? They were hacking emails, they were hacking people's doctors' files, and they were hacking into government files that they had no business hacking into, so that they could have like a head start on the news, okay, for the public to watch. Okay, so that's how they went about allowing their reporters to operate, right? They're like, as long as you don't get catch. Now, they did get caught, and not only did the CEOs say, oh, I didn't know. They passed the blame to the reporters themselves. And then at the shutting down of the company, they actually put police onto these reporters who now have criminal records. So it basically, they throw the whole blame onto their staff. So what happens to the CEOs? Where's the justice? Where's the punishment for their crimes? They knew. They were complicit in the crimes of email tampering and all these things, but they're saying out their mouth, no, we didn't know anything about that. And now here is Mr. James talking about how the way that the reporters went about doing what they did, it basically damaged their reputation, so to speak, in the sight of the people. Like the people no longer look at the news. They no longer look at the company with the kind of faith that they used to have in the company. They're really rubbing it in. And so of these 200 journalists that got fired, and some of them actually had to do jail time and whatnot, how do you think it made them feel? How do you think that this altered their life? But then again, these journalists, they also have to bear some responsibility for indulging in this quality of doing business anyway, because they do accept they accept getting involved in all these hacked emails and whatnot. They were loving their job when they were doing these shenanigans. They were loving basically being outlaws and becoming the #1 news source, or the best rated or whatever news core. Okay, so they do have some responsibility to bear in all of this, but it's like they're serving their sentence, so to speak, but the heads, so far as I can see, they're not taking any responsibility at all. Let's see what happens next.
Bunch of reporters.
Let's go back a bit.
He decided to turn us over to
The paper's proud history had been tarnished by the behaviour he called inhuman.
We all got sacked, 200 journalists got laid off. Then he decided to turn us over to the cops. I just thought, you fucker.
Actions taken by certain individuals in what had been a good newsroom have breached the trust that the News of the World has with its readers.
The main private eye, Glenn Mulcair, got arrested, got sent to jail, as well as a bunch of reporters.
I am baffled by the decision to charge me today.
Rebecca Brooks was arrested. Rebecca played a blinder. Oh, I had no idea. It was so far, but I didn't know what they were doing.
I really, really do want to understand what happened. I think all of us do, because
But she was smart, really manipulative.
Thank you, Jim.
She walked free.
We've just finished our meal and we're just going home. So.
James really took a hit from the hacking scandal.
That UK parliamentary committee did issue a very searing opinion. The younger Murdoch deemed, quote, not fit to run a major company.
This is a moment when, if he was able to finally purchase the entirety of B-Sky B, the company as a whole was there for James's taking, and the phone hacking crisis just puts an absolute end to all of that.
Rupert Murdoch is backing down.
Rupert Murdoch to withdraw News Corporation's takeover bid for broadcaster B-Sky B.
The tabloid hacking scandal forced him to pull the plug on that deal today.
Media tycoon Rupert Murdoch in retreat.
The Murdochs have had to pay vast sums of money as a result of this hacking scandal. It's well over £1.5 billion.
That scandal did so much damage to the Murdoch name. Rupert is chased out of London and shouted down anywhere he goes. He's public enemy #1.
I was appalled to find out what had happened. Everybody, and I apologize, and I have nothing further.
Every time Liz left her house, she'd be swarmed. People would be yelling things at her.
So Elizabeth urges her father to fire James.
I actually talked to James and Liz about this. James is hunkered down in his office working on a response, and Liz comes into his office and tells James, Dad and I were talking, and we really think that you need to resign and take the fall for this, because people are so upset and it's not going to do to simply fire lower level executives. It has to be a Murdoch, and we think you should be it. As you can imagine, James was furious, not just with the idea that he would be the one to take the...
That's what you call a sacrificial lamb. Okay? That's what they call a sacrifice. So James is now being urged to become the sacrificial lamb of the whole family. Because, okay, the heads of the Murdoch family, they didn't get any punishment from the law. But the public opinion, in the court of public opinion, they weren't getting a pass. So in order to stop them from being hated by the consumers, they had to, according to them now, fire one of their own to basically calm the whole situation. You see what kind of power the consumer has? So in this one, they were actually just shouting things at Murdoch. Okay? While Murdoch is protesting, I didn't know. They're like, fuck that. Yeah, you knew. Yeah, you knew, and we know you knew. Okay? You're a disgusting beep, 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 beep. Okay? So, in the court of public opinion, they were punished. But like the police and even like the Better Business Bureau, whatever the hell they're called, they didn't do anything about the situation. These are the established institutions that are supposed to be managing things like this in our society. But those were quiet. But the people were not quiet. And so it moved the heads of these companies who swear they who are above the law on this physical plane. They're above the law of the courts and that. It actually moved them to make some kind of move. So that's how much power the people, the voice of the people have. So in this case, yeah, it was a lot of talking. But in another situation, we the people have the power to make the changes that we deem fit, to execute justice to these people who feel that they are above every law. There's a way to do it. There's a different way for each and every last one of them. But we have to make it happen. We, the consumers, we, the quote-unquote little people, have to know we have the power. And then we have to use that power. Anyway, that's
lower level executives. It has to be a Murdoch, and we think
let me go over that again. Listen.
And take the fall for this, because...
So Elizabeth urges her father to fire James.
I actually talked to James and Liz about this. James is hunkered down in his office, working on a response, and Liz comes into his office and tells James, Dad and I were talking, and we really think that you need to resign and take the fall for this, because people are so upset, and it's not going to do to simply fire lower level executives. It has to be a Murdoch, and we think you should be it. As you can imagine, James was furious, not just with the idea that he would be the one to take the fall, but with the idea that his father wasn't willing to come and tell him. And what James said in that moment was, if Dad wants to fire me, he can do it himself. And then he threw Liz out of his office. That ended up being a defining moment in his relationship with Liz. And he and Liz barely spoke to each other for years afterward.
So that's the shit that we don't see happening behind the scenes, okay? So they were so horrible to the public, so inconsiderate about how they went about doing their business. And then in this public meeting, they've been dodging responsibility. Now behind the scenes, though, There's a whole breakdown of the family going on. See how karma works? So now the brother and the sister, James and Elizabeth, seem to now be starting like a serious elevated level of rivalry and disconnect. A team that fights amongst itself can't stand. Anyway, let's see what happens next.
One of the things that's so fascinating about this family is that there's so much maneuvering and there are billions of dollars at stake. But at the end of the day, they are family. They do love each other on some level.
When James was at his breaking point, Lachlan ended up flying to London in the midst of this whole scandal to calm his dad down and convince him not to fire James. So instead, James was given an exit ramp. He had a job set up in New York that was presented as a promotion, but everybody knew it wasn't. It was one of the last moments of brotherly solidarity where Lachlan really ended up supporting James.
You are a Murdoch. It's either a blessing or a curse, but it's there, like it or not.
It's obviously been a very big year. It's obviously been a very nightmare year for the family.
Elizabeth thinks the hacking scandal is a disaster, and it would never have happened if the company had been run properly.
You think?
Liz is outside of the News Corp, building her own company, Shine.
She helps make a huge success of The Biggest Loser, a perfect Murdochian type of show.
Shut up and focus.
She has shown that she's got talent for the sorts of things that you need in running a media company.
Elizabeth, do you mind, please?
Elizabeth Murdoch. She has her own production company that was recently bought by News Corp. An indication, some say, that she may be directly next in line.
Rupert buys Shine, and she makes a lot of money. And so she was brought back inside his orbit.
Whenever he wanted one of his kids to work for him and they were resisting,
He buy their company.
Rupert would just throw enough money at the problem that he could buy them off and force them back into his employ.
Do you feel that in succession terms, or into family terms, that you've been overlooked for the top job?
No, but I don't think that way. I always think about what can be done, so I never feel completely satisfied. You always think of what more you can do.
Elizabeth is probably the media executive who has had the greatest success outside the Murdoch company of any of the kids. But Rupert is of a certain generation, and so he always saw either James or Lachlan as the most likely successor.
Because they're boys.
James, for what it's worth, told me that Rupert is a misogynist and never considered Liz a viable successor.
So she is dispirited. She clearly does really admire and respect him, but she cannot deny the damage done by the family empire.
Please welcome the one and only Elizabeth Murdoch. Elizabeth's
See
going
that?
to Edinburgh Television Festival.
So the girl outshines the boys, and the father keep holding the boys in the highest regard anyway, just because they have dicks, and she has a pussy and a womb. You have a pussy and a womb, Elizabeth. You're not worthy to be boss. Here.
To give a very prestigious lecture.
Being asked to give the James McTaggart Memorial Lecture has been quite a welcome distraction from some of the other nightmares much closer to home. Yes, you have met some of my family before.
Elizabeth makes this absolutely scorching speech. She says all the sort of stuff that you don't want to see in public.
Speaking of independence, my brother James.
And the thing is, listen to what she said. And the commentator is like, all the things that you don't really want to speak out in public. But people already know the truth, so why are you going to try and hide it? You see, this is the type of PR that make the public lose confidence in these big companies. We already see that you fucked up. How much more respect you'd get from us if you admit, yeah, you fucked up, and we see you actually trying to do better. You fucked up. We all saw you fuck up. And yet still you want to forbid her or make it seem like it's a bad idea for Elizabeth Murdoch to even speak remotely of the fuck ups that everybody already know about. So you just want her to What's the point? Take accountability. We'd respect you far more if you take accountability when you mess up rather than see you trying to fucking escape justice. That is very childish of you. It shows a lack of leadership. What kind of leader are you? You're not a leader. If you cannot accept ownership of your fuck ups, you are not a worthy leader. Period. And those who come up under you wanting to emulate your business ethics, they're in a sad position too, because they're going to fall into the same rubbish situations that you create for yourself, thinking that it's more powerful for you to be more manipulative and secretive and skirt around the truth of the situation. We already saw you fuck up. Fucking own it. Show that you're a person of integrity. I fucked up. How are we gonna put trust in you if you can't admit that you fucked up? How can we have confidence in you if you can't accept and admit that you fucked up? What other fuck ups can we expect from you, seeing that that's the path that you're already on? There's bound to be more fuck ups then, isn't it? And personally, I wouldn't like to be there when this shit happened. If I'm one of his children, I'd be very disappointed in my father and them for not taking responsibility. It's not a good look. And that's going to come back to bite you in the ass, Daddy. Ew, let's see.
Some of my family before.
Elizabeth makes this absolutely scorching speech. She says, all the sort of stuff that you don't want to see in public.
Speaking of independence, my brother James spoke about it in his McTaggart 3 years ago. James ended his lecture with a line in which he claimed the only reliable and perpetual guarantor of independence is profit. The reason his statement sat so uncomfortably
Let's see
is
again.
that profit without and perpetual guarantor of
Wait.
independence.
The only reliable and perpetual guarantor of independence is profit, they said.
Is profit.
Do I agree with that?
James ended his lecture with a line in which he claimed the
only reliable and perpetual guarantor of independence. Hang on. Let that marinate in my spirit a little bit. The only reliable and perpetual guarantor of independence is profit. I disagree. Why do I disagree? Because this is the same thing that got all these big businesses in these problems in the first place, because they'll do anything for profit. The only reliable and perpetual guarantor of independence is partnership. Having the support of the people around you. Because through fault of your own, and also through no fault of your own, you can fall from grace. Now, if you have a big support system around you, then the chances of you being able to be given the help you need to rebuild is quite high. But if you go all throughout life stepping on the people who would otherwise be your support system, then you're basically putting holes in your own safety net should you fall from the heights that you may be able to reach. So the only reliable and perpetual guarantor of independence is not profit. It's partnerships. It's your support system. And the bigger your support system, the better it is for you. So how do you create a support system? You treat people right. That's how. That's how you create a good support system. You treat people right. Some people, they'll appreciate it. Some people, they'll think you're a fucking fool, like in my case. But the point is, even though I was nice to them and they treated me like shit, it's like, at that time, I didn't have much. So it was okay for them to treat me like shit. But when I start climbing the ladder of success and I start exhibiting what level of potential I've always had in me, then they're gonna wish they were never so mean to me. And so they will not have my support. So if they can't feed their children, that's not my problem. If they can't pay their rent, that's not my problem. If they need money to start up a business, that's not my problem. When you were in the position to show me partnership and friendship and support, you kicked me in my face. You spat on me. You kicked me in my belly. So now that I'm on the rise, there's no way that I'm going to use my fortune that I did not get with any of your help. As a matter of fact, you did whatever you could to make sure that I'd never got this fortune. So of course I'm not going to support you. So the only reliable perpetual guarantor of independence is partnership, friendship, mutual respect. Because you can lose your business through your own bad decisions, but you can also lose your business through some kind of natural disaster. No fault of your own. You can lose your business through some pandemic. No fault of your own. But if you have a support system, then you may not have XYZ to rebuild, but your friend over there does. Or your family over there does. And because y'all care about each other, you come and you bring your strengths together. Because they know that if they help to rebuild you, you will in turn help them. So the only reliable and perpetual guarantor of independence is partnership. Support system, real love, not fake love, real love. This mindset is exactly why all these big businesses are in problems now, because they never took the time and put in the energy to respect other people. They never felt safe to build someone else. They'll smile with you in your face, all the while they're trying to stop you from growing behind your back. Because they always want to be the one in control. They want to always be the best. They don't want no competition. They want all. That's how they think. That's why they ended up saying the only reliable and perpetual guarantor of independence is profit. Make that money. That's crazy. That's why they ended up tampering with people's emails and hacking into people's private medical records and shit like that, and then get caught. And now look what that has done to your reputation. Because you were willing to get that profit by any means. $1 billion empire, or probably billions, their empire is worth. It make y'all look bad worldwide. It's like, what else are y'all doing behind the scenes that we don't know about? I'm telling y'all, the way forward in business is to have integrity. If you don't believe me, shit, that's up to you. I'm gonna have integrity. So let's see what they think about this. Let's see what she about to say
My
about
brother
it.
James spoke about it in his McTaggart 3 years ago. James ended his lecture with a line in which he claimed the only reliable and perpetual guarantor of independence is profit. The reason his statement sat so uncomfortably is that profit without purpose is a recipe for disaster.
News Corp has been accused of putting profits first and nothing else.
Elizabeth saying the same thing everyone said about Murdoch to this point.
Profit must be our servant.
Yes.
Not our master.
So she's aligning herself with the enemies of James and the enemies of her father.
They're not their enemies. You see how he put it? He's saying now, because she said that, he's saying, or this is how he sees it, she's aligning herself with the enemies of James and the enemies of Rupert Murdoch, instead of seeing the sense in what she's saying. They're not enemies. It's like, it's not a bad thing to ask somebody to treat you right. When was that ever a bad thing to ask somebody to treat you with the respect that you deserve as a human being? Since when that become an offense? See, this is the world that we're living in. This is the mentality of the people who run this world. Let's go.
News Corp has been accused of putting profits first and nothing else.
Elizabeth saying the same thing everyone said about Murdoch to this point.
Profit must be our servant, not our master.
And so she's aligning herself with the enemies of James and the enemies of her father.
We see all of this play out in public, the deep, deep fissures in the Murdoch family.
Not surprisingly, her father doesn't speak to her for 9 weeks.
Liz ended up leaving the company altogether, setting out on her own.
She wants to get away from all of the toxicity of the family empire.
She seems to be, exactly, she seems to be the only one there that got some kind of sense. Imagine she's running her own company, void of the Murdoch money and the Murdoch name, you know, a successful company. She opened it herself, but her father don't want to see her or respect her because she's female. She's not allowed to take over the empire just because she's a woman, according to the reports. She has proven herself as a woman, as an adult, that I can start a company and run a successful company. Okay? She has proven herself. And she basically don't need the family to survive and thrive. But she allowed her father to buy back the company, thereby putting herself back under his rule. Why? Out of love? Oh, we're family. That's my dad. They're my brothers. That's crazy. So many people have fallen into these traps. The man already show you he don't respect you because you're a female. You cannot take over my empire because you're a female. He showed you that. You went away. You basically started your own empire and everything is going fine. Why are you going to allow this man to come and buy Now, unless there was some intimidation or whatnot going on behind the scenes that we don't know about, some threats and all type of shit. Because I would bet that these people are not above doing these kind of tactics to get what they want. And that's why you have to stand firm like a woman like me, shit. You want to threaten me? You're going to have to come through on those threats because you're not going to fucking move me based on just your stupid words. And if you shoot me, I will survive. Because I stand for what is right. I'll take whatever you're sending my way as long as I do what is right. I don't care what the fuck you do to me. I'm going to win. Period. Poison me, shoot me, set up people to rape me, try to intimidate my we're going to win. Period. These rich people, they would have hated to have a daughter like me. Shit, you a boss, I'm a boss too. No disrespect to you, daddy or mama. You have your brain in your head, and I have one. I'm sorry you don't like my independence. But the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. You should be clapping and commending yourself. I got your genes running through my veins. You made a champion because you're a champion. How could you expect me to be less than a champion? It's just unnatural, Daddy. It's so unnatural, Mom. Shit.
Her opportunity to do that.
I'll go back a bit.
Deep fissures in the Murdoch family.
Not surprisingly, her father doesn't speak to her for 9 weeks.
Liz ended up leaving the company altogether, setting out on her own.
She wants to get away from all of the toxicity of the family empire. And the phone hacking scandal was her opportunity to do that.
Morning, Mr. Murdoch. You're going to retire soon, finally, huh? And have a good life? I hope.
The time after the phone hacking scandal was a real ebb in Murdoch's professional and personal life. B-Sky B has been denied to him.
The Storm deal and the scandal that caused it has thrown open the question of succession in the Murdoch empire.
He thought he was rolling to world domination, and now things are starting to fall apart.
Earlier in his life, Rupert reveled in the idea of a battle royale between his children to succeed him.
Rupert pitted them against each other, played them off each other like they were cogs in this dynastic power game he was playing. But he allowed his quest for some kind of immortality to destroy his actual relationship with his actual kids.
This is about control and about the lack of respect that Rupert Murdoch is showing in his very last chapter in life. Basically saying to 3 of his children, I don't think you have it.
And this litigation brought all of it to the surface.
This morning, the family believed to be the inspiration behind the HBO hit show Succession is locked in a similar battle, playing out in real life.
This is a dispute about the Murdoch family trust, and this is very much shrouded in mystery, and we aren't sure exactly what's going on inside.
In September, we found out that the trial is about to start. And the setting is Reno, Nevada, the birthplace of divorce in this country.
Of all places for the Murdoch family to end up in court in Reno, Nevada. No offense to Reno.
I personally went to that courthouse every day. The first day was just a bizarre scene. SUV, press everywhere. Lawyers are swooping up the courthouse steps. And then the children come.
You know, so much of the Murdoch story has been narrated by anonymous sources and self-interested parties speculating about what was going on behind the scenes. But for the first time with this trial, we were getting the actual story. The real human drama of this family was being laid bare.
Mr. Murdoch, are you confident of victory?
Every major member of the family is testifying in front of each other in court. Rupert went first.
Here is Rupert Murdoch taking the witness stand in defense of his effort to unilaterally change this inviolable family trust, even though by definition an inviolable trust cannot be changed. But on some level, you can understand why he would feel entitled to do it. He built this empire. He made everyone in this room a multi-billionaire, and it's his money. The judge said that he was open to their argument if he can prove that he's doing it in good faith and for the sole benefit of his beneficiaries. But Rupert is a man who speaks his mind. He's a master of the universe. And so, how disciplined is he going to be on the witness stand, I think is a question right from the very beginning.
What will become a problem is that when Rupert's cross-examined about this, he's incredibly honest.
He was very upfront about the fact that this was about his legacy, and he didn't trust James or Liz or Prudence to retain the conservative political slant of his media outlets. That's why he wanted Lachlan to take control. I'm not a legal expert, but a legal expert would probably say that was not in his best interest to make that argument.
But Rupert's legal team appeared to think they had an ace in the hole.
I don't think I agree with that. It's his company. That's what it stands for. And anybody who's gonna be my successor, I want them to continue what I started. Simple. I think that's a good argument. Shit. If I have a shoe shop and you don't like shoes, and when I die, you're gonna try and turn my shoe shop into a pizzeria, I'd appreciate it if you don't do that, because I built a successful shoe shop and I want somebody to fill the position who is as enthusiastic about great shoes like me. Okay? Yeah, to carry on my name and carry on my legacy. And this is why I say rich people need to stop raising their children to take over their business. They need to allow these children to become what they want in this world. If you have a business, you need to look and see who among your staff is actually passionate like you are. If you're looking for a successor, look for somebody who is actually passionate like you are. They won't have a problem with taking over the company and running it. The monies that come into the company, because it's being run well, it goes to your family, and you make sure that you compensate that person who has decided to take over your company in your absence. Make sure you compensate them well, and make sure that your children are well provided for from the profits of this business. But you need to leave your business in the hands of somebody who is going to actually feel passionate about the business, who want to see the company thrive. That's why so many people, they work hard and then they leave their companies and their houses and whatnot to these children. And as soon as these children get them, they just sell them off. It's like, I don't have an interest to be here. They just sell them. You work for years and years and years and you build your empire thinking that your children are going to grow to appreciate it. Nah, love, that's your love. That's not their love. They have different interests. Look at your children and see what their interests are. And then you help them grow and invest in their interests. Stop forcing your children to be your heirs. I mean, to take over your family businesses and stuff like that. They're not gonna be happy. If they want to do it, then fine. But if they show you straight up, repeatedly, I don't want to do this, if it's making them sad and if it's bringing down their vibration, then you would be well advised to not force them, because the whole operation is going to fall. They don't want to be there. Then you can't get angry at them when they finally see an opening to sell the business or something, or they're just not operating the business right and it's all just falling apart. They don't have an interest to be there. But he has a right. If you want your business to be conservative and whatever, ever, then you need to find the right person who is going to continue whatever it is that your legacy is. Shit. I don't find anything wrong with that.
Conservative political slant of his media outlets. That's why he wanted Lachlan to take control. I'm not a legal expert, but a legal expert would probably say that was not in his best interest to make that argument.
But Rupert's legal team
Because the courts prefer you to lie. So even in the courts, this man is saying the courts would assume that it's not good to mention that as your reasoning. Like it will weaken his case. You prefer the man come in the court and lie? This is the system that we live in. Conservative political slant. That's what he stands for. Shit. Whatever the fuck that means. Do you and let him do him. That's what he wants. So he wants to put the right child in place who is going to continue his legacy. That's what's important to him and what he built. The Murdoch empire is his empire. And that's why these rich children, you need to be mindful and careful of you always depending on mommy and daddy's money. Blessed is the child who has his or her own. Because your daddy's business is not your business. Your daddy's empire is not your empire. Your mommy's empire is not your empire. That's the truth of the matter.
Conservative political slant of his media outlets. That's why he wanted Lachlan to take control. I'm not a legal expert, but a legal expert would probably say that was not in his best interest to make that argument.
But Rupert's legal team appeared to think they had an ace in the hole. And that was an exchange between Rupert and Anna, his second wife. One day, several months prior, she had reached out to Rupert, which was a bit strange. She doesn't ordinarily just call Rupert. It rarely happens. As Rupert says, it's out of the blue. They're talking, catching up, and Rupert shares with her some of his angst about James doing something with the sisters to shove Lachlan aside. And after they get off the phone, Anna writes Rupert by email. I think it's imperative that you get this sorted out soon. Some toes will be trod on, and egos hurt, but it would be worse to leave things as they are. Then she tells Rupert, you are the kingpin. You still hold the power.
This is the woman that he dumped for the Chinese woman. When his fucking life is falling apart, you see who he had to reach back to? The woman that he threw in the trash. Because he wanted a younger model. This is the wife that he dashed. Behind every powerful man is a powerful woman. This woman was a sensible woman. Nobody's perfect, but she seemed queen worthy to me. The queen of the empire. And the energy I'm getting, she don't even want his empire because she could build her own. Maybe that upset him too. There's a whole lot going on behind the scenes because she's a woman. How did he feel about his wife having her own successes? Fucking men, bruv.
Those will be trod on, and egos hurt, but it would be worse to leave things as they are. Then she tells Rupert, you are the kingpin. You still hold the power. And Rupert tells Anna he'd love nothing more than peace all around, but it's just not looking that way. And then Anna and Rupert start talking about the kids. And intriguingly, Rupert is sort of complimentary of James. He's bright, he's articulate, but time and time again showed bad judgment. Rupert tells Anna, this isn't just about the children. He says Fox and our empire is the only thing standing in the way of this woke mob, that we are the true defenders of the free world. And James in his life, Catherine wants to change it. And Anna does something kind of surprising. She talks about her resentment of James and Catherine as well. That they and their like-minded woke friends are going to be the ruination of the country. America will be doomed if these cultural elites take over.
And everyone's free to their
She's
opinion.
in perfect agreement. Rupert's lawyers try to use this to say, look, if all of this mess we're in is because Rupert was trying to accommodate Anna in their divorce. Anna, who set these parameters. Anna, who never wanted to see one child succeed above the others. She is now saying that doesn't matter to her. She is endorsing Lachlan's leadership. She's endorsing Rupert, backing up Lachlan's leadership. Why are we even here is basically the implicit argument.
This, of course, has no legal.
That's my response to that.
This is just an exchange of emails. There's binding language around the trust, and Anna has no control. And she wasn't telling him he should change the trust. She doesn't have the authority to tell him to change the trust. Still, as a man, it was important.
And it shows what's at stake in this trial.
Once the litigation began, years of internal Murdoch family communications, texts and emails started to surface that were really painful for, I think, everyone involved.
So for those of you who don't really get what's happening, it's like the trust that they're talking about is, as far as I'm understanding, is when Rupert divorced Anna, who is the children's mother, to marry the Chinese woman, I think her name is Wendy, she made sure to establish a legal document that makes her 3 children basically equal equal owners or equal CEOs, let's put it like that, of the empire. And they were saying, well, there could be a deadlock sometimes, because what if everybody have a different idea of how things should go forward? Hello, that's what negotiations are all about. Let them be adults. What's the problem with all of them having their say so? You might just create something wonderful by having their 3 differing opinions formulating one. You might just bring something brand new and wonderful onto the earth that the world has never seen. What is your problem? Y'all don't think that the children are mature enough to settle their differences among themselves in business? Make good decisions for the company and for the betterment of the whole empire? You don't think they're capable of doing that? Obviously not. That's why they want to take all the power out of the rest of the children's hands and put it just in Lachlan's hands. But then, Daddy Murdoch has his own view of what he wants his empire to be. But Daddy Murdoch, the truth is though, you won't die. So I understand and respect you wanting your vision to continue. But the truth is, you're not going to be here anyway. So how about you let those who have to deal with the world make the decisions for the world? You know what I'm saying? Because if they're receiving these things at the reading of the will, it's because you're dead. You're already gone. So the rest of us have to stay behind and live with whatever we create our environment to be. So how about you allow the living to take care of the living? You know? There's that. So let's see. I'm gonna soon stop this video. My battery probably almost dead by now.
Once the litigation began, years of internal Murdoch family communications, texts and emails started to surface that were really painful for, I think, everyone involved, but especially James. He started telling friends, my advice is to never get involved in litigation with your family where there's discovery and the discovery is all about you. I mean, just imagine what that's like if you were suddenly able to read everything that your family says about you behind your back for 2 decades. it was brutal. And I think there is a tragedy in that transcends whatever you think about the Murdochs or Fox News. This is the story of a family unraveling. And it was just the beginning.
If you don't think that your children are clever enough to build a great legacy or carry on a legacy off of what you've already started, then you as a parent didn't do a great job then, innit? That's an admission of your poor parenting, because why would you not have confidence in your children? If you've done your job as parent, giving them the opportunities to build their confidence in their own decisions, and giving them a taste of what it feels like to suffer the consequences of their own actions. If you built them properly, then there's no reason why you should have doubts about their ability to be fine in your absence. I is just saying. It is true though. So, anyhow, you guys, if you guys joined me for this here, I thank you so much for being here with me. And this is the end of this episode. So yeah, I'm gonna continue my crocheting, and I don't know if I want to listen to this anymore. I'm gonna have a smoke and have something to drink. Need some water or something. Yeah, so I'm gonna go live my life. Continue my therapy. This is my therapy. This is gonna go, you know. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing. And when I'm done, I'll be happy to show you guys them in my future videos. I'll be wearing my designs, you know. So yeah, I'm in my lab. I'm in the fashion lab as usual. Anyway, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this and learned something from the Murdoch Empire's example. You know, the Murdoch family and their empire. I hope we learned something from their example. Tomorrow is what we make it, you know. So until next time, beloveds. Bye bye.